delicious show. We're going to have Johnny Epps. He's the owner and chocolate maker at Odyssey Chocolate. We're going to have Anwar Allen after him. He's the co-owner and baker of Allen's Scottish Shortbread. So, I mean, this is going to be extremely delicious for Xavier and myself.
We'll be buzzing, not from the alcohol, but from something else, right?
Exactly, between the combination of cocoa and what's in there, and then the sweetness of the shortbread. So it's going to be a fun one today. And then, of course, Xavier and I, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on
in the market today.
Today. So a little news, a little commentary on where we see things going.
Right?
There's always commentary with Xavier. So make sure you share with your friends. Be free to comment on today's. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, let us know. And we're gonna be live shortly. It's gonna be a fun one. So thank you for joining us on today's show.
That's right. If you have any financial questions, any chocolate questions, any biscuit questions,
any entrepreneurship questions, anything you want us to ask our two guests, or anything you want to let them know, we'll be happy to pass it on. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Xavier. Thanks so much for joining us. We're excited to have you here today. It's going to be a fun show. So Xavier and I are going to talk a little news in the markets, and then we're going to have on both Johnny Epps, who is the owner and chocolate maker at Odyssey Chocolate, and then after him we're going to have Anwar Allen, who's the co-owner and baker at Allen's Scottish Shortbread. So a very
delicious show.
Delicious today. And delectable show for you today. Xavier and I are going to get to taste some chocolate, and get to hopefully taste some shortbread. So it'll be a fun one. But I mean, I know first off, as always, we are presented by Emergent Financial Services. We are powered by Cristel Noel, State Farm Agency, and we are partnering with Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I know, I mean, there's a lot. Just talking with Jerry a couple of days ago, there's so much in the news and the markets. There's always noise. There's always something going on, and there's always a new article to read about who says that things are going great, who says, no, we have to be a little worried. It's just so much uncertainty, I think, is what Jerry and I were talking about the other day.
Well, it's funny because financial news is no different than the regular news, right? Mm-hmm. It's the idea is to get you to almost think about everything and anything and make believe that all that information is critical. And it's funny because, I mean, I turn on my Bloomberg every morning, and there's 40 to 50 top stories. How can it be 40 to 50 top stories?
They can't all be the top stories.
Yeah, so and then there's like 40 or 50 commentaries. So there's already about 100 articles you have to read, or you have to cipher through to see which ones are important, which ones are not, right? And it's just, it is truly amazing. And that's why we always say, and that's why I said noise, because a lot of that is noise. And I remember when I first started my career, and of course, back then we didn't have that kind of Bloomberg. Bloomberg wasn't even existed when I first started my career, right? And so,
it's amazing.
So we used to read the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or whatever, and you read an article, and I go to my boss, and I say, "Oh, wow, did you read this?" And he's like, "Calm down, take it easy. You're here for a reason. Do your analysis. Think about what you got to do, and don't worry about what's in the Wall Street Journal." Not that it's not important, but you can't just focus on that and say, "Oh, that's really important." It's just so many things that are going on.
Plus, remember, it's all, especially in today's world, it's all designed to get you to click and read.
Exactly.
So it has to sound overly important. It has to be like, this is the biggest news of the day. You have to click this and read my article, and look how terrible this is. Click it. Get mad, and you have to not fall into the temptation, especially with the markets, because you can't be making investment decisions based on the emotional impact of reading this story in the Wall Street Journal, or this bit of news on Bloomberg, or this piece of news in The Economist.
Listen, depending on what you read, you could be saying, I've got to get out of the market now, or you could be saying, I got to get into the market now, right? I mean, just today, right? So there's an article, because obviously Lagarde, which is the president of the ECB, is talking today, right? So she said that the near-term future is cloudy. Then the next article says how Blackstone is like gearing up and has already invested billions, right, into what is going to be a booming economy, right? So they're buying, I mean, they're not investing in, they're buying hotels, buying airlines, right? So you got two articles. One says, you know,
so the ECB is the European Central Bank,
exactly,
whose head is Christine Lagarde. So she's nervous.
So she's nervous, of course.
Some,
you know, and then then there's other articles that basically said that Asia's COVID cases are rising, and basically South America is still struggling with COVID. So you have pockets of economies that obviously aren't ready to boom. The U.S., because the vaccine, because everything we've gone through, is ready to boom, or at least appears ready to boom. But
certainly Blackstone, which is an investment group, certainly thinks so. I mean, they're putting
their
money in that bet.
So the question is, I mean, they may be early, but I suspect better early than never getting in there, right? All right. But the issue is that they're, again, the noise is so enormous that you sometimes think about, is this the time to invest in X or Y or Z? And, you guys talked a little bit about Bitcoin the other day. I mean, it was down 35%. It continues to drop, right? But it had a meteoric rise. And so all that information is confusing, I think, to most investors, because it just seems like the market is extremely volatile, right? But then you step back and you take a look at the S&P 500. It's up 11% this year, right? Yeah,
that's not exactly what you would think of when you say volatile.
I take 11% every single year, hands down,
absolutely,
right? I mean, it's only we're only in April, right? I mean, mid-April, and it's up 11%.
You could sell at 11% now, sell it in mid-April, and hit a target that you may have wanted for the year from your equities.
Exactly, and we've talked about it since what? I said 2013, I think it was. The average market returns about 11%. That's why we always say you need to be in the market. You can't be thinking about, is this the time to get in, get out? You just have to be in it, right? Because it grows, right? Now, it's funny. The other day, 2 days ago, I was looking at this was an article from Schwab, right? And so what they did was they took apart the S&P 500 into the different sectors, right? The high-tech sector, energy sector, healthcare sector, et cetera, right? Finance. Okay. And so, of course, the S&P 500 is always in the middle because it is the index, right?
It's the combination of
all the sectors. So by definition, it's going to be somewhere in the middle. And then you look at what's on top and what's at bottom. And, the last 2 years, it's been information technology up 30%, 40%, right? And energy's been down at the bottom, right? But you go back in history, it's like it changes. Every single sector, sometimes they're up for 2 or 3 years, then they're down for 2 or 3 years. And so the important thing, again, is that you can't be chasing. And it's like, oh, wow, technology is up so much. I need to buy some. And then you take a look at this year, technology is just, it's taking a hit. I mean, things like Plug and Tesla, whatever, I think Plug's like down almost 20% this year. Tesla is only up like 2 or 3% this year. So
they're struggling.
So again, you look at the S&P 500, it's up at 11. So if you try to time different areas of the market, or if you try to time the market itself, that's an enormous challenge because you
always run the risk of being late.
You're the last guy in.
Since the returns are not the even one of the S&P 500, it's not the conglomeration. You could always be chasing returns and always be late, and basically say, well, goodness, the S&P made 11%, but I made 2 1 year. I only made 4 the next year because every year I went to the sector that did well the year before.
Exactly.
And I was always late.
Exactly, and that's the last thing. Excuse me, that's the last thing you want to do, is you want to be able to say, I'm going to invest in the market so that it covers most of everything that I want to invest in, right? And it covers all the sectors. And then, as you and I always talk about, if you want to take 5-10% of your portfolio and say, I feel like I know something and I am bullish on this area of the marketplace, whether it be energy or be technology or be healthcare, or right now maybe hotels and leisure, retail, that type. It's like, yes, I think the economy is going to boom. So can I find a sector that's going to do well? And you want to take 5% of your portfolio and go ahead and invest in that sector, that's fine. But you can't take your portfolio. It's the old adage. You can't you can't put all your eggs in one little basket, and you can't just take one egg and say, this is the egg that I want, I'm going to hold it dearly. But that may be the egg that just doesn't seem to...
It's not the right egg. It's the egg that when you crack it open, you say, this was a bad egg. I've been holding on to it for 10 years.
Exactly. It just doesn't look very good.
Exactly. Well, and I think it just goes to show that even even the so-called experts, like the professionals that are in this, I mean, you've got the head of the European Central Bank saying one thing, and a very large investment firm saying the complete opposite. Like, they can't both be right.
No, they can't.
In that sense, if she's right and if Lagarde is right and things are going to go south, then Blackstone is about to lose a lot of money. And if Blackstone's right, then things aren't going south. But it just goes to show you that even the professionals, even the experts, cannot be right all the time. So just you as the individual investor have to say, the important thing is not am I right, it's am I diversified? And do I have a little bit of everything so that as time, over a really long period of time, my savings grow so that I can then get that house in 10 years. I can make sure that when I retire, I have a nice little nest egg. That's really the goal. The goal is not to be, oh my goodness, can I pick the right one? Can I beat this index, or can I beat that person who thinks that this is going to happen? Because even the experts can't win it all the time.
No, you can't. Yeah, listen. Anytime you're forecasting anything, right? It's a risk. Forecast what the score of a game is going to be. You forecast what the weather's going to be tomorrow. No matter what you do, when you talk about forecasting, there's going to be risks involved, right?
Exactly.
So in the case of the marketplace, all these pundits, you listen to them, you say, well, this guy's knowledgeable, so therefore he must know. And then you look back and say, yeah, he was wrong 10 years and he was right 10 years, right? So it's like, which 10 years? I mean, are you going to guess? Then you got to guess which 10 years he's right.
Which 10 years is he in? What cycle is he in?
Exactly. So, it's tremendous. I mean, obviously in the case of Lagarde also, she may be looking at other factors, right? She may be saying, how much does the European Central Bank have to do to get the European economy going? So maybe she wants to draw a little less rosy picture so that she can then say, yes, we need to buy some more bonds from everybody, right? We need to put more money into the economy.
And in a couple of years, she'll come back and say, look what I did. I saved the European Union.
So, I mean, there's also that, right?
The ulterior motives.
There's the commentary that you were talking about.
There's the commentary. Well, I mean, we talked about it all the time. You do have to always beware, especially the talking heads on TV.
Yeah.
You always have to be wary in the sense that you have to look carefully at that bar that they have on the side of like the CNBC that tells you what the guy is invested in.
Oh, sure.
Because if he's talking up Tesla, the first thing you got to look is, does he own any?
Does he own it? That's right.
Does he own it? Or if he's telling you that Elon Musk is a crazy man and it's all going to go to pieces, you're like, is he short Tesla? Is he short? Does that will taint the way that they
no doubt about
portray the picture?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you see that all the time. I mean, if you are looking at in especially investment managers that run their own mutual funds, you have to be thinking about, are they selling or are they basically giving you some information that is good?
Exactly. And it doesn't mean that they won't be right.
No,
I mean, the guy who thinks, something the stock will go up, he could be right that it'll go up, but you have to just keep in mind, he may also be saying this because he wants you to buy the stock this way it'll go up.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So there's always that to keep in mind when you're delving into that realm of trying to make decisions based on information you think you've acquired, rather than just saying, I'm going to spread my funds across the entire universe that I can reasonably invest in and hope that as a whole it goes up.
So the bottom line, for today's show is...
The
takeaway is you have to be invested and be diversified with a large portion of your funds so that you don't have to worry. So that, again, think of it just even though people don't do this anymore, we don't really do this, but 50-50 portfolio, 50 in bonds, 50 in stocks, right? So, bonds are probably only up about 1% this year. The stocks are up 11%. So if you got a 50-50 portfolio, you're probably up about, 6.5%, 7%, right? That's a good return. I mean, that's only for 4 months.
Exactly.
So that's a good return. So again, the concept is diversify that portfolio and let the market do its work, right? And of course, you revisit that whether you want to do it quarterly, annually, semi-annually, so that you can essentially do the asset allocation we talk about. If stocks are up really big and you want to sell some stocks, buy some bonds, great. You're selling high, buying low. That's what you want to be doing. But to try to pick specifics and then follow what you hear on television and say, this guy said X and therefore I believe him. Well, the other guy back there said Y.
Exactly. It's a challenge. There's always going to be somebody who's going to say the opposite. And it's all about which expert do you believe, or better yet, don't worry about any of them and just stay the course, be the tortoise and not the rabbit, little by little.
Exactly. Well, we have a similar dilemma in front of us, don't we?
I know,
We have all these.
I know you've been tempted. You're probably having a hard time.
Well, there's
not
5 pieces
eating.
of chocolate in front of me.
Exactly.
But look, we got.
I'm actually surprised they're all still there. That one of them hasn't disappeared.
I've been talking too much. That's what happens.
So we're happy to be joined today by Johnny Epps. He is the owner and chocolate maker at Odyssey Chocolate, and it's a real pleasure to have you on with us today. How you doing, Johnny?
I'm doing well, thank you, Alex.
Good to have you on. So, I mean, before we get even into the tasting here, how did you tell us a little bit about the story behind Odyssey Chocolate and how you got into chocolate making?
So the story of how I got into chocolate making goes back to Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Nice.
I was living there at the time, and I was with a group of friends in the backyard having a conversation, and eventually it came up just casually. A friend of mine mentioned that in ancient Mesoamerican cultures that cacao, it was had as a drink, that it used to be for sort of kings and high priests and people that were more like high up within society.
No wonder I like it so much.
But yeah, exactly, right? And so it occurred to me that was interesting, and so I ended up diving into chocolate history and learning some things about that, and that led me to meet some other people that taught me more about that, and typically you would have it as a drink with chilies and herbs and spices, sweetened with a bit of honey, but generally based off of 100% cacao and water. The Europeans ended up getting their hands on that, and they made it sweeter, added milk, things like that. It kind of brings on the legacy of milk chocolate that we have today.
Right.
Okay.
And so what I discovered from that was that cacao has certain properties, sort of like coffee or tea or anything else like that. There's a chemical within chocolate called theobromine. Theobromine is, I like to think of it like the opposite of nicotine. So nicotine is a vasoconstrictor, whereas theobromine is a vasodilator. It gets the blood pumping through your body.
Okay.
It's very healthy. It's a very healthy stimulant. And there's also a reason that chocolate is considered aphrodisiac. And that would be the reason for that, because it gets the blood pumping through your body.
Interesting. I mean,
there's a lot of good words going on here.
Number one takeaway, if anything, from this interview is that chocolate is healthy.
That's right.
Chocolate is good for you. You should be enjoying it.
It gives you energy, right?
Exactly. So you got into then making the chocolate, and now you make a variety of different types?
That's right. I typically focus on single origin chocolates. So, for instance, the things that I brought to sample with you guys today, you'll see a few different country names on your list of samples there.
Right.
You see India, Vietnam, and so what's going on here is, if you guys don't mind if I show these.
Yeah, go ahead.
These are my chocolate bars. So I've got this packaging design here. This is like a Apollo with a chariot. It goes with the Odyssey theme. And then I've got this one. This one is the darker theme, and I tend to put limited editions in this one. This is a little more dark and mysterious versus this one's sort of brighter and uplifting. So when I look at the back of my packaging there, I see my ingredients list, and it just says cacao beans and cane sugar.
Does it say where the cacao beans came from?
I usually put that on the front. So every farm that I work with, I either work with one middleman or directly with the farm.
Okay.
So, and those middlemen work really hard to make sure that every farm that they work with, that the farmers are treated well. So I'm either doing direct trade or fair trade, or even something in between that's a little bit better pricing than fair trade. Chocolate industry, the craft chocolate industry is really great with treating their farmers well and their suppliers well. Where you get into problems is what we call commodity chocolate. So that's where it's just grow as many beans as you possibly can. It's usually
is that like the huge chocolate bar companies? And
exactly,
like that? Okay.
Yeah. And you're going to see that reflected in a few ways. One of those is, if you buy, I won't name drop any brands, but if you buy certain brands of chocolate, you'll be at about 10% cocoa mass, which is extremely small. What we're working with here is 70%. 10% is in the U.S. what it needs to legally be of cocoa solids to call it chocolate.
Okay.
I didn't know it was that low.
Yeah. How many other things can you think of that if it was 10% of that thing, you could call it that?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I can't. It's a good point. I'm not sure I would buy. Like if you had coffee, but it's like this is actually only 10% coffee, and then I put a bunch of other beans in it. I would say that's not coffee.
Well, and the reason they do that, besides the fact that despite all of the commodification of it, it's still the most expensive ingredient. But even if it wasn't, the reason they do that is because the commodity chocolate, it doesn't taste good. There's no love put into it. You might say this is very much an art. This process, starting from the farm. There are things that are beyond my control as a chocolate maker that have to do with fermentation, for example, and picking at the right time in the right season when the fruit pod is at the right level of maturity. I actually brought a model of the fruit pod, by the way.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's this right here. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So with this, these grow off the trunks of the trees, off the branch of the trees, and if you cut it open, there's a white fruit on the inside, and you'll find all these little seeds like these here. And the seeds are what we call the cacao beans. And so we roast those just like coffee roasters, and we grind them up and make chocolate. And then I just add a little touch of sugar, and there you go. That's your product, 2 ingredients.
That's amazing. So tell us about the ones we have here, because I know Xavier is itching.
Well, I'm looking at...
Tell us about these different types that we have.
I'm looking
here.
at
the first
India, Tanzania, Vietnam, 100%, and then I know you talked to me about the monster already, so I'm surprised I haven't gobbled that down. But go ahead.
Okay, so at the top there we've got India, correct?
I'm gonna try this one.
Yes.
So the first several are 70%. So what you're going to be tasting here more than anything is, can you taste the difference? Because on paper, these are all the same thing. It's 70% dark chocolate. So you've got India, Tanzania. So I would say start there. Can you taste how India tastes different from Tanzania? Can you taste how Tanzania tastes different from Vietnam? And I think the India that you have right there is a darker roast India that I did, which that one, if I do it at a light roast, it's almost tangy with lemonness.
Yeah, I was about to say, it has a little tanginess to it.
Yeah.
Like you can taste the chocolate. It tastes like dark chocolate, like 70%. But then it has like a little tang to it.
Yes, it does.
Almost.
Well, that's good though.
Now the one that follows that, the Tanzania, I find to also have a tanginess, but I would equate it more with the orange kind of tang.
Yeah, it's slightly different. It's maybe not as strong, tangy-wise.
Right, not quite
It
as
doesn't
bright.
hit me as quickly.
Yeah, the other one
It's that bam.
for me had a kind of a quicker, stronger flavor.
This was a
and
little more
this
gentle.
one gets there smooth. Yeah.
That's amazing that the place.
Unbelievable.
So does the place impact? Because of the conditions
Right,
where the chocolate is grown.
You've got several factors going on there. It's just like wine or coffee or anything else, but the major factors being the genetics, because there can be really different genetics between cacao beans as well. For instance, the ones that you have there are mostly what we call Trinitarios, which are a combination of a Forastero or a Criollo. Now, Criollos mostly come from Venezuela, or in that general area, a little bit of Peru, a little bit of Brazil. But the Forasteros were developed to be a sort of hardier, more prone to, less prone to disease, less prone to issues in growing. And that's typically what you get in the commodity chocolates. Now, Trinitario has aspects of both.
Okay, interesting. We have a couple audience ones here. We've got Amanda Poe is saying woo, so you have a big fan.
I got a woo. That's good.
I got a woo from Amanda Poe. And then we've got a question from Nicholas. He wants to know, actually, the question from Mama Erpy, from Mrs. Erpy.
Okay.
Do you make baking chocolates as well that can be used to bake?
Actually, there's a shop that's going to be opening here in Charlottesville on Main Street soon. Cake Bloom, another company here that she makes cakes, and she bought, I think it was about 20 pounds of 70% chocolate from me a couple months ago, and she's about to order some more already. She hasn't even opened her shop yet, so I do a little bit. I dabble in that because it's hard to price it when you're working with a product that takes a ton of labor on a personal front, because making chocolate is really different from being a chocolatier. Chocolatier, you're melting chocolate that somebody made, and you're working with it.
Okay.
With me, I'm doing that as well to form it into the bar, but I'm starting with the bean, and there's a lot of time that goes into it. So if I sell it bulk for 20 pounds or something like that, it's a little bit harder to price that in a way that people are comfortable with. But we managed to find a number we were happy with, so I'm happy to work with people.
But in terms of the ability, because she's probably thinking just for home baking, like to buy, like, so you can use one of these 70%.
You can definitely use it.
And bake with it.
And I have people do that. You can also make drinks out of it.
Oh, that also sounds. That would probably be good for our Christmas morning.
I mean, Alcoholic drinks or just like coffee? I mean,
anything you want.
hot
It's sort of taster's choice. What I like to do is I do a 1-to-3 ratio. I learned this from somebody I used to work for. Is you shave down the chocolate, like with a cheese grater or something, and you heat up a liquid, 3 parts liquid to 1 part chocolate. Heat the liquid first, then you throw in the shavings and whip it up afterwards. You just don't want the chocolate to hit the element, or it'll burn at the bottom.
Okay.
So preheated liquid, then put in the chocolate shavings, and boom, there you go. You got a creamy drink, and you can up the level of shavings if you want a thicker drink.
Ah. Okay.
Christmas morning,
Well,
hot chocolate. I
I just had the Vietnam.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you guys worked your way to the Vietnamese
I
order.
did. It's
Yeah.
nice.
It's kind of it's the middle of the other two for me.
Yeah.
All right.
It is. Although I said it's funny. It's amazing. Like if you hadn't told me that they were all 70%, I would have been like guessing like, oh, this one maybe is 60,
Right,
maybe
right.
the
No,
Vietnam
exactly.
is at 70 or 80. It's just amazing how the difference from the place can even sort of deceive you as to what percent
Exactly.
chocolate is, especially when you're just used to in the store. Like typically you just buy a piece of chocolate. The only thing that makes it different is the percentage. There's no distinction of place and different flavors.
Now, would you guys say in what you're tasting, it seems maybe sweeter than you would expect at 70%, or less bitter or astringent? Less bitter or astringent than
So
what you'd
I would
expect?
say that the first one was probably the India was, you can taste the bitterness. I mean, I'm a chocolate. I mean, I just love chocolate.
You like
so I don't really
that kind
care even if it's bitter. I love the flavor, right?
Yeah.
But certainly the Vietnam and Tanzania.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You
wouldn't
just
have-
don't. That bitterness is very mild, and I agree. I would have never guessed that was 70%. Never. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I
just
would have thought
the
it was
flavor.
less
Much
because
less,
it doesn't
yeah.
hit you
It
with the
doesn't hit
bitterness
you,
of the
yeah.
ones you buy in like a store.
So what's the 100%?
So the 100% is a blend that I made. It's a combination of the Indian and the Vietnamese. So that's a one ingredient thing right there. That's crushed up, roasted cacao beans, ground until they were smooth
Wow.
enough to be a chocolate bar. Everything grinds for 3 days at least, just continual on a granite stone grinder.
So that's what it tastes like when it's just no sugar,
That's
pure
right.
chocolate. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
It lacks a little sugar.
Right, it
like the
that lacks a little sugar for sure. That
you
one
can-
was.
You can taste the flavor of the chocolate.
Exactly.
But you're so used to the little bit of sweetness that you're looking for it, but the chocolate's there.
Yeah, no, it's funny. You should almost taste it a little more in a sense if you get a
Yes.
really good sense of like. There's almost like flavors in there that I wouldn't get if I had that you don't get when you have the sugar.
Right. And I taste a lot of my chocolate that way when I'm working with it. I'm taking my little test spoons and trying to batch as I'm grinding, making sure I got the roast right. I'm tasting beans as I'm roasting them. Now, also the last one that you've got there, the Monster Bar. A little
Gotta
story
try
to that
this
one.
Monster.
This is so. I had a lot of people come up to my stand at the farmers market. I sell at the Ix Market on Saturdays, and they wanted some kind of milk chocolate. And I don't want to work with milk, actual powdered milk, because when you make milk chocolate, you use powdered milk, and I think the whole thing's kind of gross myself. I don't really like that. And so I thought, well, I'm already working with high quality beans. A lot of the reason that people use milk powder is to cover up a off flavor in lower quality beans. So I said, well, people just want a sweet chocolate. So
That's
what I did
cool.
was
That's cool.
I've never had a piece of bar with that flavor. Really.
Yeah.
No,
How
I
do
mean,
you do? What is it? Is it still
unbelievable.
just chocolate and sugar? How do you get that flavor?
So that one, there's a touch of vanilla, Ecuadorian vanilla beans. There's that's Venezuelan cacao, which is a criollo, one of the early, really smooth, low tannant origins. So it's not as bitter already. There's also a little bit of my Uganda, which gives it an earthy roundness to it. And then finally, at the end, it's a little bit sweeter with a little extra cocoa butter. Because if you add a little extra sugar without adding the cocoa butter, it'll get gummy. There'll be the ratio of solid to fat will be off, and you won't be able to temper it well.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And you came up with that yourself? I mean, did you?
Oh yeah, that's why I got the name Monster Bar, because
Okay.
I was experimenting in my kitchen, and I ended up trying this out. And like I said, I do use my test spoons, And so I was trying out different recipes, and then I ended up adding a little bit of the Uganda to give it more of a roundness. And then I put my test spoon in there, and the next thing I know, I was out of spoons, I was out of forks, I was out of knives. Yeah, so I was like, I created a monster.
I can't blame you. That is
very good.
I've never had
exactly.
a sweet bar, because usually by the time you get to a milk chocolate, like a sweeter chocolate bar, it doesn't taste as much like chocolate anymore.
Right.
Like the flavor has
very
changed.
Milky and sweet.
But this just tastes like chocolate.
Yes.
Pure, like that is a little sweeter.
Once he said vanilla, I said,
you can
you
taste
can
a
taste a
little.
little bit of vanilla in it.
Just the
but
hint.
the flavor's amazing. It really is.
Oh man, you have more fans here. So, Amanda Poe said Vietnam is one of the best. Zoe Elizabeth Apple West says, I put it in my chili and have made hot chocolate with it as well. Dough Johnny Dough.
Oh, wow.
And then, so Michael Walraven, I think maybe he's given us our last question for today. He says, how can your chocolate change lives?
Okay, that's a great question.
A good question.
So I would give two answers to that altogether. One is on a personal level. Going back to the original part of this conversation about the stimulating effect of chocolate. If you were to say, and I'm not telling people to do this because I think it's a lot to ask a lot of people. If you were to replace coffee with chocolate, it would definitely change your life. What we put into our bodies affects us a lot. And the feeling of coffee, we get used to it. We get to maybe where we need a second cup. Some people are more sensitive and they can really, like me, my heart rate will go up like crazy and I can barely handle this stuff. But if you switch to chocolate, what you find is the energy is there, the alertness is there, and you can experience in your day-to-day life a little bit more alertness, I would say, and presence. So what has been referred to as satori experiences, this idea of you're alert, you're awake, and you're present. And it's called a satori experience because it's not enlightenment per se, it's temporary. And chocolate can really help, I think, to just make you more present in your life. It's grounding and also uplifting at the same time. So in that way, chocolate can really change your life. And on a broader sense, moving away from supporting companies that promote and add to child labor and slavery, and supporting local businesses that are working to support other small farmers. So basically, if you buy, not just from me, but if you buy any craft chocolate, you're supporting both a small business locally, right, and you're supporting communities. You're supporting communities in Colombia, you're supporting communities in Vietnam, you're supporting communities in Tanzania. Because this is part of a whole movement that I hope gains more traction. I hope we see to where the number of craft chocolate companies can eventually outdo the number of coffee shops in Seattle, because that's where we're at right now.
I'd go for that.
I would 100%.
It's amazing. It's true. You think about it, sometimes, at least for me, this is kind of a personal observation, but when I'm a little depressed or things just haven't gone right, and I go for a hot chocolate or have chocolate bar, I mean my whole temperament changes. I mean I go for that, right? Because that's what I want. So it's and these are amazing. So I agree.
They are fantastic.
So from now on, you wake up with a cup of hot cocoa instead of chocolate, or instead of coffee. I'm gonna have to figure that one out.
Exactly. So I'm gonna end with one more comment from Tori Auerhahn. Love to see artisan makers on the show. Odyssey Chocolate is a prime example of an artisan approach to food and beverage. Johnny is truly a craftsman, and the quality of the work is absolutely reflected in the final product. And the new packaging is great too, which I do. I like the Odyssey theme.
Thanks
the packaging,
so much,
and definitely fantastic chocolate. So people can find you at the market.
That's right,
and then also where?
Online, odysseychocolate.com, www.odysseychocolate.com, Instagram at it's the opposite, Chocolate Odyssey, and then Facebook.com/Odyssey Chocolate. But you can buy it online anywhere in the country. You can find it at Rebecca's Natural Foods. A few different stores around town. I want to get in more places, so if anybody hears this and they want to carry some chocolate, definitely reach out.
Absolutely. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure, a true joy.
Thank you guys so much.
You made my day.
I know, you've definitely
chocolate in the morning.
Day.
What else can you ask for?
Oh man,
Thank you, Johnny.
That was fun. That's a good. I
mean,
just
you know,
love
I was
the.
trying to be kind. Notice I only had a piece of each.
You wanted to
because
save some?
I'm afraid that Mama Arpy's going to say, you didn't save
You
me
didn't
any.
save me any
So-
chocolate. I noticed it
was
halfway
good. Yeah,
through.
you were just
Otherwise,
gulping
yeah,
it.
the first ones I'm like, I'm eating this
Forget about it.
whole piece.
You were chunking that
And
down and say, look at that.
It was too good not to. It was like, oh my
Well, you
goodness.
didn't know it was good before the first one, but you took the whole thing.
Oh, goodness. So we're going to be joined shortly by Anwar Allen from Allen Started Shortbread. In the meantime, we have a question I think is more for you.
For me.
And Xavier. So Fud Guy writes into the show, and he's curious to hear your opinions on apps like Acorn and Robinhood.
Oh, wow.
While we await Anwar Allen, he's going to be joining us shortly. Good and the bad, do you recommend to younger people?
So as usual, the issue with apps of that type, right, is you really are on your own. And so those are the situations where if you have a particular hot tip, let's call it, where you think that something's going to do very well or somebody's giving you an opinion and you want to be on those apps, that's fine. But for long-term investments, you really have to think about the fact that those apps aren't really there for you. They're there for other people, and that other people meaning really for the traders in the world, and you're not getting the best price. It's the little hidden things. When you get things for free, you always have to ask yourself, why is it free? And I think you, Alex, have talked about this a little bit. The reason they're free is because you're the last online. If you're putting in an order for Tesla, and there's 1,000 orders ahead of you or even behind you, you're last. You're being put last because you're not that important anymore, right? So if that's the case, you're getting the worst price. It doesn't look that way because you just get a price, but you're getting the worst price possible. So you have to be careful about these apps. And again, if you want to do a little investing on the side, you want to use those apps, that's great. But from the perspective of long-term investments, I don't think that's
You have to think about it. Fantastic. And thank you, Fud Guy, for watching the show. A great question, I think.
Absolutely.
It's definitely something we've been asked before. And so now we are really excited to transition
More
from
fun.
chocolate to
We should have this show go
shortbread.
2 hours if we keep this up.
I know we should just keep going. So we're joined by Anwar Allen. He is the co-owner with his wife Laura of Allen Scottish Shortbread here in Charlottesville. And Anwar, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Good morning, Anwar.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Actually, this is the first time doing this show, doing all this stuff here in
In the studio.
In the studio.
Live.
Awesome,
It's
live.
beautiful in here, actually.
Awesome. And
Should I
you brought us
closer?
shortbread, which we are extremely grateful for.
did.
So we've got cherry blossom here.
Yeah.
Just the boxes themselves, you don't feel like opening them. You just got to put them on
I
display.
know they're-
It's like an artwork.
Yeah. There's people actually that they cut them out and they've got them, in their houses. They've got them on their fridges. Actually, somebody just texted my wife just the other day, and she actually drew it. She's an artist, so she redrew it in her own style, whatever.
Wow.
So it's there's a
That's
lot of people that like the
fantastic.
artwork.
So my wife would take those, cut them out, and then get a frame and put all four. And then I guarantee you
she
there's
would.
a place at the house, because there's always a place. I don't know how she finds them, I feel like I have to extend the house just for her to put pictures of. But there's always a place. But
They remind me almost of Peter Rabbit.
Yes,
That
Beatrix
kind of
Potter.
Beatrix Potter style.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
that was
beautiful.
the feel. Laura's grandmother actually used to read her those stories when she was a kid. And so they had the cups, the glasses, they had the bedspreads, the whole 9 yards. And, that's just their life. Her grandma is, she's 90 something now. So you got to imagine, back in the day, all they had was picture books,
That's amazing.
That was a part of her grandma's childhood. And, she passed it on to Laura. So.
That's awesome. Just how that's involved, even in the marketing and the what you would just think of as the packaging. So, for those who don't know you, who are new to Today Mañana, tell us first off, like how you got into this business, and tell us like sort of the story of Allen Scottish Shortbread.
Man, it's so funny. Everything is sort of intertwined in our life story. So when we first met at school, I meet her back in '03, and we were just friends or whatever, but I got to see she had a box of shortbread in her dorm room, on her shelf, and it was Bridalwood Scottish shortbread was actually the name of her grandma's business back in the day. They had a tea room. They had shortbread selling in places like Saks and Fifth, Macy's, Balducci's, and they would they're typically seasonal gourmet type stores. And I'm like, what's up with the shortbread? What's going on? She was like, oh, this is what we did. Da, da, da. And I was like, shortbread, that's weird. Like, who does that? Because most of the time, I love shortbread growing up. Actually, it's crazy how it's all full circle. But I remember my dad, he worked for Mobile back in the day. And the company parties, they'd give out these big things like popcorn and a blue tin of shortbread. And so I'd always, be fishing for the bottom. And, I get my caramel popcorn and the star-shaped shortbread. That was my favorite. And so, it kind of goes by as just a cool story. But we date, and I end up seeing the bakery up there. She had a bakery up on her horse farm. She had about 50 or so horses. So it was like that was the main business, was the horses. So this bakery was a side deal. So they kind of let it go just because it was more lucrative to do the horses. They had Arabian horses. So things kind of fall by the wayside. People get older, people move away. Her and her sister, left the farm, all that good stuff. So nothing's being done with the shortbread. So grandma comes to Charlottesville. We're married at that point. I think we've got one kid. We're doing a photography business / videography business. So I'm doing video for companies, restaurants, and weddings, because we're in wedding country. The catch to it is, with a baby and your Saturdays and Sundays, it's not conducive to a family lifestyle. So we could do it for a little bit, but it was like, well, I'd have to hire somebody out because it was hard to find a nanny or something like that, and I'm paying just as much for somebody to watch my kid as I might have just Laura do it, and then I could pay somebody on the cheap to be my second camera. So I did that for a little bit. Grandma comes down though, and she's like checking out the setup. She's like, okay, this is what we're going on. Got an apartment. We have our goals, we have our financial goals, all that stuff. And she's like, this is not gonna work. Like either the business is gonna work or your family's gonna fall, because it's so much time.
That grandma wisdom.
Yeah, so much time outside of the family, my whole weekend. So the reason I did it to begin with was to get away from a desk job. I used to work at World Strides, and I was sitting in a cubicle, you know what I'm saying? And I wanted to get into the marketing department, and they didn't see the need for me there, so I had to leave. I was like, man, you know what? I got to do something different than air. I was an air travel guy. I was looking for fares. You know what I'm saying? One of the toughest markets, especially after 9/11. So, we go out on a limb. She says, look, you got to get out of this business. You got to do something else. You got to make some money, and you got to have something that you can actually pay other people to do alongside with you, so that eventually you can do what you need to do. Somebody can run the business. If it's not a business, if you have to be there, essentially, that's what she says. That's not completely true. However, from her standpoint, I could see what she was saying. Right. Like, it's not something.
If you're completely a one-man shop and doing all the work, then is it a business or is it a hobby? Thing?
So it's and I guess that's a big that's another discussion on its own. But it's not. Maybe it's a trade. You know what I'm saying? Because you're a plumber, you're an electrician.
True.
But you still got to be there, and if you train other people to do it, they might be able to start their own thing pretty soon. And that's actually what happened with the photography thing. I trained people to do the thing, and they're like, I got my own gig this weekend. I'm like, what? So that we did that back in 2014, started up. She came down on a train with some cutters, with the first six pans we ever used. She bought us a mixer from this lady, Sheila Talbot. We were at a church picnic or a potluck, and she says, afterwards, she's like, you're going into the shortbread business. We're like, what? She was like, I just bought a mixer off of Sheila, this lady, Sheila. And Sheila had paid for her kids to go through college at the markets that are downtown. So she was done with it. Okay. So she sold us our first rack, our first mixer. Just happened to be one of the only kitchen shares just opened up. Pie guy, Justin Begley, I don't think he owns it anymore. I think a guy named Keith owns it now. And he sells, shout out to Shenandoah and Keith. He's selling the pie guy up at Shenandoah Joe's. Anyway, so, we just gave it a shot. We were sharing a kitchen share. And, I was just like, we'll just make enough to sell to markets. And
Awesome.
it just kind of snowballed from there,
Whose recipe did you use?
It's grandma's from Glasgow
grandma's.
Scout.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's butter flour, sugar, rice flour. It's actually not her recipe. It's her sister's recipe, but we won't talk about that.
We won't say that on air. Don't worry.
No, I'm joking. She knows I love her. She could actually, she'll probably watch this later on. But she'll say that her aunt was actually the better baker in the family. But her mom would make this. So her mom, they'd always have shortbread on the counter. So her mom would actually make this, and they'd go to school with it. And it's a simple recipe. And back in the day, when the war was going on, they would have something always in the pantry because, it was tough times. So, that was something they could count on was shortbread and cans of fruit. So,
Wow. Big
And
store.
so I see, obviously, there's three different
Three
boxes
different
here,
flavors.
right?
Yeah. So this one is the
yeah,
chocolate cherry. I love the chocolate. cherry.
that's a
So
pretty
good.
nice one. Now, honestly, we think we have about 7 or 8 flavors now.
Wow.
And I'll probably forget it, but there's lavender, Earl Grey, lemon, pumpkin. Our traditional is always a home run. That cherry chocolate. We're just now coming out with a matcha flavor. Coming out with a birthday cake flavor. Coming out with a wedding flavor, which is rose, vanilla, lemon. And we're commemorating 15 years of marriage. And 7 years with the business, and all of it falls within like the same week. So it's kind of a cool little time for our business and our family.
That's awesome. How do you decide on new flavors? to put
So it's a cool little, her grandmother actually did business up in upstate New York and the border of Massachusetts. So she was actually, when she was first starting out, she was actually hawking shortbread at markets up there, alongside another guy that was hawking his tea. His name was John Harney, if I'm not mistaken. So if you've ever seen Harney and Sons Teas up there, up in the north, they were actually starting about the same time back in the 70s, 80s, something like that. And so he was selling tea up there, and he had a little tea room, and she would sell the shortbread there. And so they had a little relationship. Years later, maybe about 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, Laura contacts them again. I send them some samples. We get in touch, and we're talking at this point to his son and his grandson. And we're like, hey, we're like, doing this thing again, and we see you doing your thing. How about we kind of collaborate? So we already had pumpkin, had lemon, but we weren't doing the type of stuff we're doing now. Like we actually put tea in the shortbread, and we come up with flavors that
That's how it's done.
That's
kind
how
of
it
go
works.
with their
With the Earl
what
Grey.
they're doing. So if they have a cherry chocolate blossom, or not? Yeah, I think they do have. Maybe there's not chocolate in that, but anyway. So they have a matcha, they have lemon, they have a pumpkin spice, they have Earl Grey. So they got all that stuff already. So we kind of tweak it. We do some emulsion sometimes. We'll do some sort of bergamot oil to go with the Earl Grey. That's all Earl Grey is, anyways. And so we'll do different flavors, what we can with our capacity, and also what tastes good with shortbread. You can't get too wild with it, but so they have ideas. Sometimes we have ideas. And the guy that we work with closely with it's Emmerich Harney and Mike Harney. So they're, shout out to them. They really gave us a shot to kind of branch out into some. They sell a lot of shortbread for us. They sell more than Whole Foods does.
Wow.
And we're in about 60 or so Whole Foods stores. So that's pretty good.
That's really good. That's
I'm
amazing.
surprised. They are a giant of a company in terms of what they sell with tea. Yeah, so they do a mail order, they probably do website, and then obviously they do wholesale. So
That's incredible.
yeah.
So how many people you have, working now to produce the
Well, it just depends on the season. Sometimes we'll do internships. Sometimes we'll have kids in there that get a little work permit over the summer, and then sometimes, and that typically ends up being like homeschool kids because they got a little extra time to work, and they're just go-getters. Those homeschool kids.
Homeschool.
I heard that.
And let's see, we got a couple people that have actually, they're on their like second career just about. I've got a guy who works for me. He's a PhD The guy is super smart, and he's got some extra time. And then I've got a husband-wife couple and another lady, also very well-read. They've got like 2 or 3 degrees. It's crazy. Like, they've just got extra time, and they don't mind being around me. So, it's been...
Is that a challenge, is what I'm trying to say?
No, I'm a nice guy. It's the networking, honestly. When we first started, somebody at our old church was like, hey, you starting up the business? I know somebody you got to have. She was like, call up Lois McGill. And I was like, all right, call her up. She's a homeschool mom, had 4 kids. 2 of her kids in the military. One flies planes, one's like a ranger.
Wow.
Her daughter's a nurse. One of her daughters a nurse. Other daughter was in the military. So, like, she did a good job. And she's like, so it's cool that she would even, spend time with us, and help me out in the bakery. And her husband's cool too. So, yeah, it's interesting how people have like kind of come alongside us. We're so blessed. Like we couldn't have looked at a Craigslist ad, put out a Craigslist ad, and found the people we have. It's definitely a miracle. I don't deserve them.
That's what it is. I think people do. I think they gravitate also to good businesses, good people running business. People like to work for good people.
My wife is very nice.
Oh, sorry.
Well, the other thing I was going to say is anytime you're cooking that you're baking, it's like take a little piece here. I mean, that's a great Let's face it.
They love the shortbread. They love the shortbread. Yeah, I don't know if it was any other type of product they would do it. I think there's something cool about the shortbread.
The shortbread.
And it is a family business, so I think they love the girls. We have 3 girls, and Sam, Willow, Sky, and so they just love us as a family. They just came alongside us, and that's all it is. It's a family. It's mom and pop shop.
Exactly.
As good as it gets.
Exactly. You mentioned actually earlier, like how part of the reason that grandma said to get into this is because the other one was going to be difficult for balancing that family life.
Yeah.
And I know I was talking with Jerry the other day, and he mentioned that you also, in addition to all this, you also ran like a teaching pod.
Yeah.
This past year. So how do you balance like the hard work that obviously goes into being an entrepreneur in a business like this with family life that is like we know is so important?
Yeah. So the cool thing is I don't know. I think I'm an ENFP, and my wife is like that other one that's like good at like spreadsheets and order and calendars. And like she's like, did you fill out the calendar? Did you do the checklist? And we've been married 15 years, so at this point, I know how important it is. I used to be like, come on, let's just wing it, But obviously you can't. If you got 3 kids, 2 of them are doing the homeschool thing. One's going to be coming up maybe a couple years from now, and then we have orders. Companies. We have our website. We have new vendors, whatever it is. And then we have I have a guy that I'll deliver shortbread to his house. He'll text me, you know what I'm saying? But all that stuff has to be like has to be somewhere documented so that, I'm good with keeping up with it if it's somewhere. And so I send her all the information. If somebody texts me, whatever, I get it to her. And so we work really well together. And, so I'm the extrovert, she's the introvert. And there's a lot of things that balance us out. So we have our strengths. It took us a while, but we figured out, okay, what are you good at? What am I good at? How can we make this work? And then the other thing was that, was it From Good to Great or 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? One of those books was like, get people around you that do better, than you do in those other areas, right? So like, some days I'm really good at being a technician, you know what I'm saying? Or some days I'm really good at being an entrepreneur. I'm bad at being an accountant all the time. I do the accounting work, but my wife was like, today's your Friday, don't do anything but admin work. So send the papers in, send Whole Foods this thing they need, the insurance needs to be updated, all the business information, whatever it is, this is your day, get to it. I'll be on there, and I might get lost on Instagram. She's like, well, so she, she knows every other hour she's got to check on me and make sure. I'm joking, but so she's. I wouldn't be able to do it without her. Like, there's certain things that she does, and I'm like, I'm glad you caught that. Like, because I wouldn't.
Well, somebody's got to be the boss, and obviously she's the boss. That's what you're telling me.
She's who's the boss? Remember that show? And so, there's a lot of things that we make sure we do, and then we hold each other accountable, and we do it in love. You know what I'm saying? Because, what's the point in doing a business if we're not going to love it, have passion in it,
Exactly.
but also understand that we're not Superman and Superwoman. There's going to be things we're going to drop. And so there's a lot of us just, there's a lot of grace, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And failure is always an opportunity to kind of make it better or learn from it. And, we're always looking to grow. So, our thing is we grow together, and I'm only as strong as she is, and she's only as strong as I am.
Right.
And that's something we did have to learn, through some years of kind of, me trying to be He-Man and her trying to be He-Woman and whatever, or She-Ra, I guess it would be, right? She-Ra. But there was a lot of little things that we learned along the way. And so, the business kind of made us grow up. And then having kids made us grow up. I think that if we didn't have the business and the kids, I'd have less gray hair maybe, but I got some coming in on the chin. But, I think that we're better for it, and we've learned a lot in it. So it's all one thing. They're not separate. They can't be, honestly, especially as young as we are with our business.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. And so much, I think, great advice there. In terms of life, not just like running a business, in terms of working with your partner in life to sort of build each other up and have grace in those moments when there's going to be like mistakes. Like in any business, nothing ever works out perfectly all the time.
Yeah.
You have to overcome mistakes, and, errors, and then just challenges that come your way.
Yeah, and even in the moment where we might see there might be a possibility for failure, I think us allowing each other to kind of do it our way. Like she knows now that like I'm a weird creative, and so I might see something like down the pike that might need to happen, so it has to be done a certain way, and she trusts that I'm going to get it done. And the same way with her, like she's kind of like in the moment, like in the immediate moment of, okay, this has to be done a certain way in this logical manner, and that's cool. And even if we might fail, it's okay. Like we're allowing each other to do that as well, even if it doesn't, hadn't happened yet, so that we can grow into who we're supposed to be. Because I don't think we're the same we were then, and I think we're going to grow into different people, coming up. So.
Is that like no fear of failure in a sense?
Yeah, no fear of failure. Because I believe, this is, my weird side of me is like, I believe that there's no coincidences. I believe that things happen for a reason. I believe that, for instance, her grandmother gave us the recipe, trusted me. After 10 years of marriage, she had not given this recipe to anybody. People had been coming along asking for the recipe, trying to buy the company years ago. They wanted it. She almost got into Starbucks with the shortbread. Wow. Like that's how that's how you know what I'm saying. So so there's a lot of things that have come along the way. That the kitchen share, Whole Foods buyers have given us a shot. All the DC stores didn't have to let us in the store. I just told them face to face, like, hey, I can sell all this. You put it on the shelf, I'll sell it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I was up there for hours on, driving up 2-3 years, saying, hey,
perseverance.
Put it on the shelf, I'll sell it. And they trusted me. So it was like those people trusted me, I had to deliver. But they had to give me a shot. Just because we got into the Whole Foods in Charlottesville didn't mean I was guaranteed a shelf space at all the other places. We had to get a distributor after a while because Amazon bought them out, and it was like sort of a thing that they made small vendors have to do. And even then, like the distributor, they had to trust us. You know what I'm saying? They were like, I was like, look, I can move this shortbread, trust me, And so they gave us a shot. It was like these relationships kind of were built, and they had to take a chance on us. Even from, was it Shenandoah Joe, Seville Coffee, like the first places we sold in, they had to give us a shot. Like, it was
So
people showing love for us,
That's amazing.
So how many
That's
years
awesome.
ago were you in? How many years ago did you get to into Whole Foods?
So it took us. It was a year into baking that we got in, and again, happen chance or God's grace. There was a lady. There was a liaison going around that was working for Whole Foods at the time. They don't have this position available actually. So as a small vendor, getting to Whole Foods now is almost impossible. But so they had people going around, going to markets and finding the next great little product or whatever. So whether you're making caramels like Lavache, or you're doing like a little super coffee bean granola bar or whatever, they were trying to find you. You know what I'm saying? They were just trying to show love to small markets.
Small businesses.
I remember that, yeah.
And so they were just saying, look, we'll give you a shot. You're in the region, but you have to go talk to those other stores. so nothing was guaranteed. But that was it was like 9 months of paperwork, what I'm saying, all sorts of stuff. Because, you got a lot of hoops you got to jump through. It's a next level. You're not at the market anymore. You don't just have to have your business license. You got to have the VDAC certification, you know what I'm saying? You got to have some sort of packaging. When I first started, I went to, it's not MJ Designs, was it? What's the little thing up there? They do.
Which one?
Oh, anyways, I got a little stencil, a stamp, a little green stamp, and from this little craft kit, and it was green ink. I didn't even have the name on it, and I stamped it on there, and I had like 32 bars or something like that. In my first market, I sold out, and if that didn't happen, I probably would have done it again. I was like, good try, But yeah, so we started with no packaging, and then we found a box company up in the Northwest. So yeah, it was just little by little, we made it on the shelves, and then been doing that maybe 5 years, and then the distributor, we didn't get that till maybe three or 4 years ago.
Amazing story.
What a great story.
Yeah.
And so,
Anwar,
before we let you go, anything new coming down the pipeline that we can expect?
Yeah. Well, you know what? We're actually turning the clock back a little bit. Grandma's molds. I'm using her mold, MOULD, not mold.
MOULD. Kind of mold.
I think we figured
it's like a cookie. It's like you could put all the shortbread in it, and it's like an inverted pan, and so that it has these beautiful ornate shapes in it, and then putting them in there, and I'm just selling them online. Obviously, we'll have the other flavors. Cherry chocolate, that's killing it right now.
Oh, I love the cherry.
But yeah, we're doing some old vintage stuff because we're doing a lot of mail order, and people are still sending stuff to loved ones and not able to, see their people, not able to travel and all that stuff. People are getting vaccinated. People are getting, doing what they got to do. But still, I mean, not everybody's gonna be able to get it, and their second round and all that stuff. So. Yeah, people are sending our shortbread.
All right. So online, what's the website where they can
It's
find it?
AlanScottishShortbread.com, and we've got it on Amazon as well, which is cool. So
Awesome.
we got it there, and yeah, just go there. We'll ship it worldwide. Well, yeah.
Pretty much.
I will.
Check it to see if there's any place we don't ship it to. Wait a
Did you see me compute? I was like, hold up.
Certainly Charlottesville, thankfully.
Yeah, you definitely get it in Charlottesville.
That's awesome. Well, Anwar, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so
Just
much.
to
And thank you to your wife for making sure everything stays organized. Otherwise,
Yes.
who knows where you'd be right now.
Oh man, yeah, she knows.
You may not even be here.
I got my phone. It's got the GPS function now. She knows where I'm at. So.
Thank you again for joining
Thank
us.
you, Anwar.
And be sure to check out Anwar Scottish Shortbread. Alan Scottish Shortbread
Yeah,
is where you can find it. And definitely try them all, but definitely if you're looking for a first one, the cherry chocolate is my favorite, I have to say.
Did you taste them all?
I've tasted others from Anwar before.
okay.
This isn't
Well,
my first time tasting.
Just checking.
This wasn't my first time tasting.
Because I know you like cherries.
Alan
And say,
Scottish
just went to
Shortbread.
cherry and say it's my favorite. It's like, of course.
Of course, naturally. Oh man, so that's a fun show. And
It
I
is.
think
And
just,
this
I
was
love the
delightful.
stories, just the stories of how people start these businesses, and then just the passion. I mean, you just see it with Johnny, you just see it with Anwar that
Exactly.
they really
They love what
they
they
love
do.
to do what they do.
That's right.
And it shows and it shows in not just how they talked about it, but in the product.
Exactly.
In the just the
You can
deliciousness
taste
of
the
it.
passion.
You can taste the passion, as we were saying. And so, yeah, and thank you all for joining us. As always, next week is also going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be joined by Edwin Roa. He's the owner of Sabor Dance Studio, co-owner there. So we'll talk a
Maybe
little
you can give me
salsa.
some tips.
Well, I think he's also with Charlottesville Salsa Club, so we'll talk a little dance, a little entrepreneurship there. And then we'll be joined by Jackie Lamas. She runs Lista, which is a mentorship group for Latinas in Southwood area. Okay. And I think they're all in Charlottesville. So she'll tell us a little bit about that project, that great mission. So 2 really beautiful Latino initiatives that we'll have on the show next week. So I think it'll be fun as well. And thank you, as always, for joining us. Thanks to Jerry. Thanks to Judah for as always, running the show behind the scenes here. And just once again, thank you to our sponsors, to Emergent Financial Services, our presenting sponsor, and Cristel Noel Start Farm Agency, our powering sponsor of Today y Mañana. And as always, thank you to you, the viewer. This wouldn't happen without you. Be sure to share. Let us know what you think. Let us know who you'd like to see on the show. If you know Latino entrepreneurs, you know any entrepreneur
That's right.
in Charlottesville, let us know. Send them our way. Nicholas says that Xavier is beyond hope on the dance floor. So
Well, we'll find out. Maybe
we'll find
next
out.
week. You never know.
We will have you dance next week, or at least you'll get some tips.
Speaking for the best dancer in the
speaking
family,
from the
right?
best
Yeah.
dancer in the family, as though Nicholas is something on the dance floor.
Wait, is Xavier the best dancer?
I'm not sure. Maybe our
Probably.
mother or Xavier. One of those two is the best
No, it's
dancer.
the mother. Always the mother.
The mother is Mrs. Irby's probably the best dancer. But it's certainly not Nick. Let's put
right.
it that way. I don't think he even goes on the dance floor, but he's teasing us here. But yeah, so you'll get some tips. We'll maybe hopefully get some tips from Edwin
Exactly.
on salsa. So it'll be a blast. And as always, thank you for joining us. Share the show. Be sure to tune in with us next week at 10:15. And until then, we will see you hasta mañana.